Everyone, welcome to our June session of virtual mini art. So here is what we are painting today. I hope you all have fun painting this mountain landscape scene. If you have any questions, please feel free to either type your question under the video or send me an email and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Have fun! Alright, let's get started by going through our materials. The first thing you're going to want to do is make sure you have a pencil and a ruler. You've got your canvas opened up if yours came in plastic. Have some paper towels on hand and of course a nice cup of clean water to rinse your brushes. And I like to set my colors up on a paper plate, get everything on there all at once. I'll just go through those colors real quick. As always, feel free to use some different colors so you can personalize your painting. Feel free to use any colors you've got at home. That is always a great idea. All right, so we have got white, we've got the dark blue-gray, black, real red, hot rod red, tropic orange, sunny day, new shamrock, bright green, summer sky. Gonna skip this one for a moment. We are gonna go to the wild iris and grape jam. Jumping back to this one here, this one is an optional color. This is the metallic purple. I do recommend putting that on as a little finishing touch at the end, but your painting will come out great even if you don't use that. I also recommend, because we are going to need very small amounts of certain colors such as this pink polish, what I'm going to do is, this is why you don't see it on my plate, I like to just give it a little shake and then take the cap and dip directly into that when I am ready. That's how little we need. So I'm gonna wait on that, and when that's time to add that, I'll take that out and I'll show you that trick. But that can be a great way to save the paint because these amounts here would be way too much for what you need. So good way to save it, just take it right out of the cap. All right, the real last but not least, we have got our brushes. I used a variety of sizes on here. This large one worked great to get the sky in there, and then these three helped me put the rest of the painting together. So you're going to want to have a wide, thick brush, or excuse me, a wide flat brush, a slightly smaller, wide, flat brush. You'll want to have a pointed brush, and you'll want to have something tiny to do your details. Those are the four I'd recommend. Alrighty, let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is draw my horizon line. So I'm finding about the halfway from the bottom to the top, and then I'm going up a little bit, maybe about an inch. And you're just gonna make a horizontal line straight across. All right, we can retire the ruler for today, and we'll finish getting our sketch on there. First thing we'll do is put that mountain in there. I like to start kind of the highest point, just sort of get your idea of the mountain on there. So I've got a little bit of an outline here. I've got a couple of peaks. There we go. And I'm going to come down the other side. There we are. Okay. So I've got that highest mountain. If you look closely, the mountain I've got sort of has something a little bit smaller in front of it, which I'm going to get on here now. So it follows a similar pattern. The peak is similarly placed. And I'm just going to bring it down like that. So I'll just leave that for my mountains. I'm not going to worry about putting the pine trees across the way here. I'll just paint that in after. But what I do want to do is put my little creek in here. I'm going to start from the bottom. About here is where I want it to curve. Then up here, because it's further away, it's a little difficult to tell where the water ends, where the sky and the trees begin, what's a shadow, what isn't. So you can just draw a little bit of a zigzag over here. Again, on this side, we'll do the same thing. Zigzag going, make that rounded bank, and we'll bring it back over here. Okay, so very, very simple sketch. We don't need any details in here. Okay. Now, for this painting, we're going to jump around a little bit. It works well to get some of our base colors in different sections, then go back and fill in some of the details. So the first thing we'll do is get our sky on there. I'm using my largest brush, and I'm getting a little bit of my summer sky. I'm brushing this in a variety of directions in order to fill in some of those little grooves in the canvas. Also, the sky definitely has clouds throughout, so it doesn't have to, you don't have to bring your brush across perfectly straight or exactly vertically. You can kind of go all around. And as you can see, if you're doing a nice thin layer, you can see through it a little bit. If you like that, if you feel like that looks like a little bit like some clouds to you, feel free to leave it. If not, you can always go over this color and darken up this blue a little bit. It's up to you. I'm overlapping over the mountain just a little bit. The reason is I don't want to leave a gap of white by mistake when I go in to paint the mountains. Okay, there we are. While I've got some of this blue on my brush, I'm going to get some of this creek going. Now, for the creek, you want to have nice horizontal lines because we know the water will be perfectly flat, and this is a good way to show that. I'm going to put most of my concentrated blue down here, and as I move up a little bit, I'm not filling in every bit, just sort of sweeping a little bit across, and you'll see that you can see those brush strokes. As I move upward, I'm holding my brush perpendicular to my canvas. And that'll give you a little bit more control while you're doing this. There we go. Nice horizontal strokes. Okay. Just spreading that a little bit. You want to make sure you do a nice thin coat. Okay. You're all set with that. I'm going to go ahead and give this brush a rinse. And that's all I'm going to use that larger brush for. I'm going to go ahead and use some smaller brushes for the rest. I'm going to locate my purples here. Now in our mountain image here, if you notice, the darker the purple, the more it recedes. So we're using the purple in 2 different hues. I'm mixing a little bit of white in there, give a little bit of light color, the lighter purple, and a little bit of darker purple. And then I'm going in with some white to add a little bit of or to show the raised areas on the mountain. And you can see where the orange and yellow are. That's meant to show where the light is hitting. So it's shadowed and a little bit deeper in the mountain with the dark colors, and the lighter colors come forward a bit. So with that in mind, I recommend holding that reference photo close by and following that pattern of where the dark dark parts are, where the lighter parts are. So I'll show you how it's done also. I'm gonna go ahead and take my grape jam, and I'm gonna get that on first. And this is definitely more of a mountain than a hill, so feel free to have some straight lines in there. You don't want to create a rolling hill. So I'm just creating some areas here that are shadowed or deeper. Can always add to this too. The trick with this, I have found, is not to overthink it. It's really easy to overthink this step, I have found. But just kind of get your paint on there, and you can refine it as we go. And you can darken this up too as we go. I put 2 coats on these areas where I needed it. I found that sharpened up my image best. Okay, there we go. You can always put more if you want. I'm going to put in a bit of light purple next, since I've already got this purple on my brush. I'm going to mix it with a little bit of white. And you can use your judgment as to how light you want it. I like to go for sort of what I'm going to call a medium purple, trying to get a color that falls very nicely in the center of these two. So it's not overly purple, not overly white. It's sort of right in between, not leaning towards either color. Okay, now that I've got that color, I'm just going to put this on in a few areas. Again, try not to overthink it. These are also shadowed areas, but they're not as deep or as shadowed as the purple, the darker purple. You can overlap a bit as well. And as you can see, you don't need much. Mixing with white really increases the level of coverage that you get. I'm putting some of this color close to where I put the dark purple, because typically on a mountain you'd see areas of greater depth beside areas of like a medium level depth before they jump right to a really high point. So I'm just trying to think of what may occur in nature as I'm doing this. There we go. Okay, there we are. I'm going to give this brush a rinse, and I'm going to wipe it off. Now I'm going to let my purple dry a bit before I go ahead and put any white in there, or the yellow or the orange. I want the purple to dry a bit, that way it doesn't mix with the orange and yellow and turn brown. So I'm going to keep it like that for now. I'm just going to set this brush aside. I'm going to go ahead and use that in a moment. I failed to say at the beginning, this is one of your pointed brushes, so not one of the not the teeny one. But now I'm going to go ahead and we're going to fill in a bit of this grass here. I am using this brush here, so it's the flat one, not quite as big as the other one that we used. And what I'm going to do is, well, I've got this nice purple made, and I've got just a small bit. You can see there's not much there. Just dabbing that a little bit. And I am sweeping this right across my water. And I'm putting more of it on this back half of the creek, because that's the half that's closer to the mountain. and therefore the half that would probably have more of a reflection. Feel free to add as much as you would like. I had to mix a little extra, get a little bit more in there. As I get closer to the mountain, I'm adding a touch more of this nice purple. There we go. And you can certainly put a bit down here too, just so that it blends up nicely, but you don't want to have too much. There we go. Let's give that brush a rinse, get that purple out of there. We're going to jump into the grass next. I'm taking a bit of my new Shamrock, same brush that we were using before, and I'm holding it perpendicular once again, and instead of holding the brush against the canvas like this, I'm holding it like this so that I get a thinner stroke. I'm doing that in the background, and I'm staying horizontal too to go with the land. That way you can see the strokes a little bit, and it creates a little bit of distance for us. There we go. Just dipped a little bit into my spring green. And again, try not to overthink it, just let the colors mix up a little bit the way they want. Just kind of brush it right into the water area. There we go. Gonna do something similar on the other side. Start with that Shamrock color right along the horizon. We're gonna darken that up too. But we've got that happening there. Add a touch of your spring green. I'm sort of imagining where the creek is going to go. You can sort of see how it sort of has a zigzag kind of back and forth motion and gets smaller as you get closer. So I'm closing that gap a little bit here. Okay. All right, I'm going to go ahead and switch my brush position now. Just going to get some green on here. Now we're going to add more detail to this, so don't worry. It doesn't need to look really stellar. I've got my Shamrock green going on now. Jumping over to this side, going to do the same thing. Right around this bend here, the grass is going to move upward, so right here I'm starting to go in a specific direction with my brush. Got my dark. Whenever you feel like it, throw a little of that nice light spring green in there. So I just blended that up a little bit. There we go. There, okay. Now I'm going to take a little of that spring green, blend that right in over here. We'll add more grass, of a grass look through here as we move through. Feel free to even just mix the colors a tad if you want. Moving my brush in an upward motion, because that's what we're going to do when we put the grass in there. But right now we're just getting the color on here. Creates a nicer base for our details. There we go. Okay, so you can see my brush strokes a little bit. That'll probably work to my benefit, actually. Okay. Give that a nice rinse. Now we're going to jump back into the sky. At this point, if you want to darken up your sky, put your light blue on there, and then when you're ready, come back to it and make your clouds. But what I'm going to do is, I'm going to leave it the way it is, and I'm going to use some white. Now here is where I'm going to open up this pink, and you want to give it a nice little shake. Just take same brush that we've been using, just dab a little bit in the cap. That is plenty of paint right there. Put that near your white. Just get it onto the plate. And mostly you want white for this. So just kind of blend that up a little bit. When you like the color, and you can see even that tiny bit is producing a very pink cloud. So I'm going to use this for a little bit. I think I like the idea of some nice pink clouds. You're just dabbing with the tip here. The idea is dab around in the shape of a cloud. So we've all seen what clouds look like, where they can be nice and full. Those are the ones we're going for. They're really full fluffy clouds. So I've got a bit of pink there. I'm not getting any more pink on the brush. I'm just going for white, but I'm not rinsing. You don't really need to do that. And just dab that in there a touch too. It'll give you a little bit of variation in your cloud color, excuse me. Feel free to add as much, to cover as much as you want. There we go. Now what you can do is, you can even let this dry a tad, go back and put a little more white on there. That'll make it pop really nicely. So I'm bringing mine right up to the edge. Okay, there we go. While I've got a little bit of this nice pink, going back to my water here, and just through the center, just a little bit, just a smidge of that pinkish, whitish, bringing right through my water. And feel free, refresh that brush, add a little bit of pink on there. Just a little bit, kind of in this center area is where I'm focusing that color. Just be mindful, the green is wet, so you don't want to accidentally bring too much of it into your painting. But if you do, rinse the brush, dry it right off, and sweep it right across. Get any, oh, you might get a little bit off. There we go. Now I'm going to just go ahead and leave that. I have a couple choices at this point. I can either just extend this here, or I extend the grass, that is, out a little bit, or I can wait a little while, let that dry, and you can cover that. So I'm opting for that choice at this point. Okay. All right, let's go back into our mountain. So even if your color isn't perfectly dry, as long as it's drier than it was before, we should be all set. And don't forget to close up that paint so it stays fresh. And I'm going to grab my brush that I was using for the rest of this mountain. So that is this one here. And I'm going to use a bit of white first. So white. Just gonna get a little bit where I'd like. I am filling in, for the most part, much of the area that isn't painted. And then I'm going to put my yellow and my orange on top of that. As you fill in, feel free to overlap a little bit onto your purple. If you blend a little unintentionally, that's okay. So we've kind of got like a little bit of a snow-capped mountain look going now. Okay, there we go. Giving this brush a bit of a rinse. I'm already seeing a couple areas I'd like to add a bit more of my purple. my dark purple that is. Feel free to put that right in whenever you're ready. I find with painting mountains, it's easy to overthink it and do something that doesn't really make sense based on what a mountain looks like. So just kind of let yourself just put it where you think it looks right. Just kind of go with your gut a little bit. There, okay. All right. Give that brush a bit of a rinse. Let's put a little bit of our orange in there next. Same brush. So you're thinking kind of where the light is probably hitting. So you're going on the areas where you put white. You don't want to overlap on the purple spots. There we go. And let's hold off on putting any yellow in there. Let's wait a few minutes, let that dry up a bit. All right. Same brush. Let's go ahead and get this detailed up a little bit in our grass. So what I'm doing is jumping back into my green. I have got a touch of this nice blue-gray. Just take a little bit of that, bring it right over to your green. Right up at the top, right along that horizon. Use a little bit of the greenish, bluish gray, just to define that horizon line a little bit better. It doesn't have to be perfect. We're going to put some trees on there so you won't be able to tell if it isn't perfect. Right near the water, adding a little bit of that blue-gray, horizontal strokes. I'm also adding in a little bit more of my shamrock green, so that's the darker green. There we go. Just get a little bit in there. You don't need to bring that color down too far, just a little bit. Next thing you're going to want to do, while I'm thinking of it, I'm going to give my brush a quick rinse. Take some of that straight blue, dark blue-gray right around the perimeter here. And you want to think up. So what you're doing here is creating a little bit of shadow and a little bit of that, like that dirt that you see when the land meets the water. So you see it on this area here. You also see it in this bend over here. Just a little bit of darkness there helps give us the look of this rounded curve. There we go. Just going to bring that out a tad because I'm going to put grass right on there. There we go. So you can see you can bring it out rather far. Okay, then back here, just with a little bit of those nice dark colors. Ooh, there we go. Now, it's okay if your green mixes a smidge. Okay. All right. Let's jump back to our grass. Just gonna keep taking a little bit of your spring green, a little bit of shamrock. Just kind of, and it's flat back here. You can't really tell what the grass is specifically doing yet. Okay, right about halfway down though is when you're going to want to change your brush strokes. So I'm just going to get in over here, get some more of my horizontal strokes in. And this can be a little bit thicker of a coating of paint. Okay. All right. Because, so I'm rolling a little bit of that paint off. I don't really need to rinse. Just get a little bit of that off. So right up here, with some of the paint that you've got on there, and feel free to add paint whenever you need to. You're just gonna go just little upward strokes. You can even, if you want, in the distance a little bit, in a couple of spots, do that. Just a few upward strokes. Not long strokes, because it's not that close to us yet. And you can go right over the edge, just a smidge. You want to show some of that nice shadow that you made though. Just gonna get, you don't need much paint in doing this. So basically you hold that brush perpendicular to your canvas and just do quick up and down motions. So straight up, and you sort of lift the brush off the canvas just a touch. So you can see changing up the look here. It covers all of those openings we've got where we can see through it and see the white underneath. As you move downward, you're going to extend those strokes because they're getting closer to you and therefore looking larger. Go. And I'm just moving right over to the side. What's nice too is we're putting some flowers on here, so don't worry if it doesn't look super great. There we go. Okay, so you can see the difference now that this is filled in, and back here, just adding just a little bit more texture back there. Okay. Now, over here, what you're going to want to do is be mindful of this bend you've got here. So we're going to do the same thing with the straight up and down. Now these are going to be a little smaller because it's not as close as over here. There you go. A little bit of each color. And right around the bend, you want to make sure the grass is going straight up and down and that you don't turn it into sort of a weird shape. You want to just keep that grass going, but you want to maintain this shape, and just getting the grass nice and horizontal is what's going to help you with that. There we go. am still using same brush. I haven't switched to my detail brush yet. But anytime you feel like you need a smaller brush, go right ahead and make that switch. Okay, there we go. Now is a good time to add a little bit more color to some areas of your water if you want to. So I'm going to take a little extra blue here. Same brush. Using this to add like a little additional texture to this, because this creates a slightly different stroke than the other brush did. So that makes it look kind of more like water, because it's not perfect, not perfectly still. There we go. I think I blended that bit in. There we are. And feel free to add any other colors, like I'll put a little bit of purple. There we are. Okay. All right, so we are really cruising here. Let's get a little bit of our yellow on here. And now, actually, I'm going to recommend, well, first we'll use this brush for some of our yellow to get yellow in here, and then we'll switch to the tiny brush to get a little bit more of our details in there. So we've got our Sunny Day Yellow, and this you'll use sparingly on the mountain. Oops, grabbed a little orange there. The yellow. So you want this in certain areas near your orange, your white. And you're thinking areas where the sun is catching, glistening right off of the mountain. Okay, so you don't need an absolute ton of that, just a little bit. And if you find there are some areas in here where you'd like to add a bit more white, I can see I'd like to add a little more white here, right in this area. You can go back and do that whenever it is dry. Okay, there we are. All right, so I'm happy with this. So I'm gonna leave that for now. I'm gonna go ahead, give this brush a rinse, and we're gonna switch to our small detailed brush. So the teeniest brush you have. Grab a little bit of yellow. Right back here, a couple of areas where the light might be hitting. A few horizontal lines. It's fine if it mixes with some of those other colors back there. You can also bring this yellow down into the grass a little bit. Just add a little bit of a highlight in here. A couple of spots where the grass is just a smidge lighter. Okay. And you'll do that over on the other side of the creek too. So as you can see, just a little bit, not a lot of paint on the brush. You can always add to it too if you want it to be a little bolder. There we are. Also, feel free to add a little bit more pink, little teeny bit of yellow into your river, whatever you would like to do. All right, before we add the flowers, we're gonna put those pine trees in. So, tiny brush, using some black. Now for this, I actually turned it upside down. I found it a lot easier to do it this way because the bottom here needs to be the longer horizontal line, and I found it easier to go from larger to smaller. The opposite way was challenging, I found. So you're just doing some really thin, super quick little horizontal lines. And you want to start with the largest one on the bottom, and as you work your way up, you get thinner. And just be sure your paint is mostly dry. If it's a smidge wet, that's okay, but you don't want it to be too soaked. And you want to use a pure black for this. So if you do pick up a little bit of other colored paint, you want to just wipe it off, rinse it off, whatever you want to do. And if you can, you want to try to get varying levels, varying heights of the trees and the level of where it begins. So you want to start some a little bit higher, some a little bit lower, just to kind of make it look like what it might look like in nature. Okay. Again, the trick is to not overthink it. Just kind of do a bunch of quick little lines. And I like starting right in the center. I feel free to darken it up too. That's what I'm doing now. There we go. And sometimes I find it easier to put two trees beside each other and then fill in the center, fill in between and do that one next, rather than them side by side by side by side. Just do a few, then fill in some of the gaps as you go. Alright, almost done with these trees. Good. And then when we flip it over, we'll see if we like it. Okay, so if you notice any gaps, like for example, right here looks like a bit more of a gap than I'd like. I'm gonna fill that in a little bit. And maybe here as well. Okay, all right. Here we go. Let's see what we've got. Okay, not bad. All right, so what we're gonna do next is bring a little bit of shadow down onto our green. Now mine is a little bit wet. I recommend wait just a few minutes. You don't need too long. Just let that dry just a little bit. But with my detail brush, I have a bit of black paint. I'm starting right at the top in the center, and I'm working my way down. You want to do just a little bit at a time because you don't want to accidentally smear some black paint right over your picture. But you want to bring some of that shadow down. If it mixes a little bit with the green, that's okay. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to try it with a different brush. I'm moving on to this brush. But with this one, it's a little risky. You don't want to have too much paint on there. Just a little bit. Make sure there's no globs. There we go. This is more effective. A little scarier, but it works. Okay? So you sweep that right across the way. Okay. And bring that shadow down as far as you wish. I'm even going to add just a little more shadow in a couple spots. Like right around there. Just want to put a little bit more. So I just have a smidge of paint left on the brush. I'm just smushing it around a little bit. Okay, so now we need to just polish up this reflection and add the flowers and add the metallic, and we're done. All right, back to my little itty bitty brush. Okay, so what I'm doing is taking a little bit of paint, choose a tree, and try to make it similar looking in size and shape. And it's going to be, I would recommend, if you can, try to get it just a little lighter. That way it looks like it's reflecting. There, so you don't have to go nuts, just put like a little bit on that bit of water. Okay. All right, so the other thing too is you want to make sure you just put the reflection on the water, and then it'll be way blurrier on the grass. On the grass you can just smush a little paint around. There. Alrighty. Okay, so we're set with that. Once your purple is totally dry, that's the time to add your metallic. I'm gonna go ahead, take a little bit of my metallic, and just get it on certain spots. Just pick a few. There we go. If you want, if you don't have this color, you could use a little bit of that wild iris, which we're going to get out in just a moment. Okay. Alrighty, okay. We're all set with that. Last part are the flowers. Switching back to this brush here, this one works well for me. Making sure this is dry, we don't want to mix red and green. That won't make a nice color for us. You're going to take the real red. That's the brighter of the two reds that you've got. One is a little bit muted. You want to go with the brighter red. You can really start wherever you want. I'm going to start back here, tiny. Just a few dabs. Thinking flower clusters. Make as many as you want. Could make tons and tons, or just add a couple. Most important part with this is you want them to get gradually larger as you move forward in the painting. And it's dabs in flower shape. Just think flowers, and then just dab sort of in that little cup shape. As many as you want. A couple clusters. Add as many as you want. I didn't add too many, but maybe one more here. Okay, I'm going to jump to my other side. These ones are going to be little. There we go. So we've got some clusters. Okay. Now what I did with that other red, the Hot Rod red, just took a tiny bit of that and I just put like a little bitty stroke on one side of all those flowers. It just gave a little extra dimension. But you do want to wait for these to be dry. I'm sort of putting it on right now, which you certainly can do, but it'll be more striking if you wait for it to dry. Just a little bit. Not as important on the other side. There we go. Okay. Next, we'll do those purple flowers, This is where we're getting our wild iris involved. Same brush. And these ones I made to be something sort of like a blue bonnet. So taller at the top, kind of little dabs as it and gets larger towards the bottom. But I'm doing it with little dabs. Got some sort of wildflower, I'm thinking. Sprinkle that around wherever you want. Some of that on the other side. Doesn't need to be detailed at all. Just a little something. There we go. All right. Let's do one more. Okay. If you want, at this point, you can certainly take a little bit of one of your greens and specifically make a stem to go with these. So it blends in, but it can just crisp up your design nicely. It blends in, but it's just a nice little detail for the ones in the front. There we are. Okay. And that is it. I hope you all enjoyed this month's project, and I hope you will join me again next month in July. One more time, if you have any questions, please feel free to send me an email or post your question below. These videos will stay up for the foreseeable future, so they should be there anytime you get around to doing your painting. All right, thank you everyone. Hope you have a great start to your summers. Bye-bye.